Sonic's at the ready. Hello, everybody, from the three of us and the three Sonic Screwdrivers. Today we are back for another roundtable review. So I'm once again joined by Josh and Pete.
Hello.
Hello. Miles can't join us on this occasion, or so we think. Maybe he'll pop in for like a Spice Girls interlude at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, he might. Yeah.
Maybe.
Spice up
Just
our
like,
lives.
like the toy maker kind of popping in and then disappearing again. Who can say? Yes, so this is
I was
going
going
to
to say, are
be...
you sure
Go on.
that this is actually us three? Are you sure we haven't just tried generated? That might have happened.
Oh my god. No, that'd be a twist. Yeah. I mean, there we go. On brand, on topic. This is the Giggle, our review, our
Yeah.
discussion about the Giggle, about the bi-generation, split regeneration, and everything else besides the toy maker, all the stuff that's going on in this story. It was a big episode. We made some predictions. I'm trying to remember now what we predicted last time. I can't actually remember
Well, I was completely
what
wrong
we
because
said.
I said that the toy maker was going to come from the same universe as the Timeless Child.
Oh yes, yeah.
So, well, I
Because
mean, it's not
yeah,
been confirmed or denied. Big Finish, he could do that.
I think I think Big Finish will be having a field day with this, won't they? With the
Yeah.
14th Doctor and Donna adventures and everything in the future,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in years to come.
And I
So
mean,
I
Pete jokingly predicted the 14th Doctor's going to regenerate, and you didn't even get that right to be sort of like skeptical about it. You were
yeah.
getting into the nitty gritty.
Yes, I mean now we can at last talk about the leak, which we were just looking at again, weren't we, to sort of compare
Yeah.
notes about how it came out and how it was executed on screen. I guess we might as well kind of just jump around with this and maybe get straight into all that stuff. I guess um, all three of us, I think, had seen the leak, hadn't we, in some form or other at some point. So we
Yeah.
all kind of were
Yeah.
expecting it to some degree. Um, yeah, I should say as well that Pete and I watched it together on the night when it went out. So yeah, I know some of what Pete thought about this already. So maybe Josh, do you want to tell us a little bit about when the moment happened on the helipad for
Yeah.
you? When did you realise that the leaks were true and that's what we were going with? And yeah,
Well, I realized that the leaks were true back when Star Beast aired
well, yeah, when she spilled the
because
coffee and the
when
meep
she
and
spilled
all
the
that. Yeah.
coffee and there was a line about um, Rose being annoyed about the Doctor presuming the Meep's gender, which I remember was
Yeah.
referenced in the leak, and then it turned up. I was like, oh, okay, so it's probably true then. I, going into it, wasn't looking forward to it and was dreading it happening.
Oh right.
However, the way that it actually came across and the way it was done in the episode, I didn't actually mind as much as I thought it was. There's some questions that I have that I'll probably put to you guys later on about what this means now in terms of the canon of the show and where specific doctors are in their timeline now and what memories they have. But I think I really like the sentiment of the 14th Doctor's story that unfolded, and how he sort of ends up retiring, I guess, at the end of this. Um, which begs the question, does this 14th Doctor become the curator, maybe? Revisit another old face?
Yeah, well, either that or if, as has been suggested, admittedly not in the episode itself, but by Russell and other stuff, if, yeah, all of the Doctors also biogenerated in some way or bi-generated,
Now that
maybe
I don't
maybe
like.
Tom Baker originally. Okay, yeah,
No,
maybe the original
I
Tom
can
Baker
get
had turned into
behind this
creator, but
happening, but I don't
mm,
like sort of retconning past regenerations and saying they're all
mm,
out there now. I don't like
okay,
that. I think I don't mind this because the 14th Doctor isn't. It's not like at the end of Hellbent where Clara and me have just gone off into space having their own adventures. It's not like that. This is a Doctor who's, you know, to quote Russell, he's parked. He's
mm,
settling down. He's not being the Doctor anymore. He might occasionally take Rose or Mel on a trip to outer space, but he's parked on Earth. So that's why I think I don't have too much of a problem with it. I
okay,
don't like the idea
interesting.
of multiple versions of the Doctor flying around having their own
Yeah.
adventures coexisting.
Pete, hit me up with some thoughts on this because I think we were saying, weren't we, to each other that in advance of this, we perhaps weren't as wary about it as Josh in terms of the execution and stuff, and from the leaks and yeah, kind of beforehand. How did you find it? What were you thinking before and afterwards?
I think, well, I think I hadn't kind of read the leaks as much as you guys. I kind of was aware of them and kind of briefly skimmed through them, but I didn't know the details of it. Um, I think, yeah, I think it's fine. I don't think
Mhm.
it's as offensive as something like Timeless Child was for me. Um, but yeah, it's fine. But we'll see what the ramifications are for it, I guess. I think it's still very early days for it.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think as we've sort of alluded to, it's a little bit weird, and as other people have said as well, like that Russell has sort of outlined this theory or whatever outside of the show, which I suppose love it or hate it, sort of it kind of makes sense. I think as I was sort of saying to one or both of you beforehand, maybe that I kind of expected him to give an explanation along these lines of it being like kind of a Doctorverse or Marvel universe thing where they are all out there, like yeah, like we were saying, love it or hate it. Um, but yeah, that wasn't in the episode itself as much. I suppose yeah, like Josh was saying, we got the ending for David Tennant and for his Doctor or Doctors, which yeah, I guess that was nice. I think because it kind of it went back to all that sort of stuff of him being a more human Doctor originally and turning human in Family Blood and stuff like that, or having these romances and stuff. It was kind of like a fitting way, I think, a fitting end for his Doctor to kind of settle down with his families and his makeshift family and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, okay, so Josh doesn't mind it too much in terms of how it was in the episode, and then I think Pete and I maybe yeah sort of don't mind. I mean, it will be that thing, won't it, of going forward and how much they do with it and how much they can do with it as well.
Mm.
Will it just be more like Tales of the TARDIS type stuff, just like throwaway things? Because I guess they're not going to be getting like Sylvester McCoy in like episode 1 of next year, or it's not going to
No.
be or David Tennant back straight away, is it? But I suppose maybe just if they want to have them at their disposal for whenever they do want to bring them in at random, whatever, then they're there. It's an interesting one. It's a funny one. I think, yeah, we'll sort of have to wait and see. But I suppose, yes, turning to the other half of that scene, then we might as well talk about our new Doctor, Gatwa.
Yeah.
Josh, how did you find him in this?
I really liked him. I thought he's watching the behind the scenes he talks about during that catch scene. It's almost like he's finding out how his new body works and getting to grips with that. And you can really sort of see the sort of energy. It's very much like Matt Smith in 11th Hour in a way that sort of new life is suddenly
Hmm.
breathed into the part, which I thought was really, really good. And the character that we've seen so far, he seems a lot more fun-loving, very emotionally um, sort of invested, well, not invested, but open with people in a way that perhaps the 13th Doctor wasn't, but the 14th Doctor is. Um, but probably more joyful like the 13th Doctor was. So it's a nice sort of development of the character. Um, the question I've got with the 15th Doctor though, and it's all about so how this bi generation thing works now. So whatever the 14th Doctor does post bi generation, does the 15th Doctor have those memories of what the 14th Doctor is doing now on Earth with the Noble family and all of that stuff? Or does the 15th Doctor's memories of being the 14th Doctor end at that regeneration?
That's a good point. I think I would say I'm inclined to say that the memories end, but
Hmm.
yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? It's still sort of so much in flux, and the idea, yeah, is who knows.
Yeah, because if it's sort of like the way I took it, there's multiple interpretations, I guess. Either the 14th Doctor is now a separate offshoot splinter Doctor
Hmm.
and can perhaps regenerate on his own and, like I said, maybe turn into the creator, or the 14th Doctor is going to live out his life and at one point he's going to start to regenerate, he's going to fade from existence and teleport back to that helipad. So I'll be interested to see which one it is. Um, but also, I think that the reason why I didn't mind the bi generation much is that whenever you have these sort of anomaly doctors that we've seen one for each showrunner now. We've seen the War Doctor, we've seen the Fugitive Doctor,
Yeah,
and we've
it's true.
seen this 14th Doctor now.
Yeah.
These doctors always um, allow the Doctor as a character to grow quite a bit because the Doctor's quite a stationary character. They have, their own arcs in the incarnations, but as a whole, they're normally quite stationary. But the War Doctor, which was introduced in the last anniversary, so there's precedent for it, changes the way you see the character of the Doctor in sort of their development during the Time War because it's like the parts of yourself as a person that you shy away from. It's the stuff that you do that you're not proud of and you want to forget and bury. Whereas the Fugitive Doctor, again, it changes the way you see the Doctor as a character as a whole, which is why so many people were annoyed about it. It changes who the first iteration of that character was, and it's all about parts of yourself that are undiscovered to you until later in life. This Doctor, the 14th Doctor, I remember talking to you guys about this back when after the Star Beast aired. I thought it's going to be something that's going to change the character of the Doctor, and it is because it's the Doctor having to basically take a break and process the past 60 years for us, but billions of years of adventures for them because there's stuff that they don't process. They're like the ultimate character of um distraction and doing something now and saving the world to not focus on your problems at hand. And it's something that has been raised quite a bit, especially in Tales from the TARDIS, like with the Earthshock one, which Russell wrote, where Tegan says, "We always keep running, we never look back." Um, and it's true. Apart from Big Finish, when they sort of put that in and in between stories to flesh it out a bit more, but they don't really look back. And I think it's a perfect sort of celebration in a way of 60 years to acknowledge everything that's happened and have a Doctor who's able to sort of process all of that finally. A bit like it's a bit like, yeah, you can retire, you can rest now. And what I liked about it was that a lot of people often say or liken a regeneration to passing the torch over, passing the baton over to the next person. You sort of literally saw that, and it was almost as if the Shooty Gatwa Doctor was coming and saying, "Okay, you can rest. I can look after things from here." And it's nice in the way as well that people thought with the 50th, so maybe this will be wrong and we'll think this and it will be completely untrue. But people thought with the 50th, it's setting up the next 50 years because the Doctor's got this new mission of finding Gallifrey. This is almost doing a similar thing, but with the character in that the Doctor's baggage of the Time War, of the flux of everything, is sort of going to be, I guess, resolved now, so that the Doctor can come fresh in season one with Shooty, and we can have another 60 years of baggage for us to put on this character, new stuff,
Hmm.
perhaps. So that's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think yeah, I do agree with that. It was a nice thing to do, like you say, with the Gallifrey thing from the 50th, to have a similar thing here where you're sort of addressing the past, but also like outlining this vision going forward with the whole Doctor thing, with the bi-generation and stuff like that. I think on that note, an interesting thing to touch on maybe would be, yeah, more broadly, how did we feel about this story, maybe the specials as a whole, a little bit as well, not kind of getting too far ahead, but in terms of how well the story and the specials kind of struck that balance between the past and newer stuff. Do we think, I don't know, there should have been more older stuff or different older stuff, or do you think it got in the way of the new, or vice versa? How do we feel, Pete? Maybe any thoughts on that?
I think we spoke at the weekend, Richard, and I
Mm.
think we both said there's certain things that feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity. So, like, this is probably the last chance we're going to get to have Susan back, and there's no
Yeah.
Susan.
Uh-huh.
Um, and even like other stuff that felt quite obvious, like, oh, you could have put Martha in there. That would have been quite nice. But I suppose you never want to overload it. You never want to put too much in, so it's a difficult balance. Um, but I think as a whole, yeah, I think it was a little bit lacking in anniversary stuff. I mean, it was obviously a regeneration story and a multi-doctor story in some ways, but yeah, I think it would be nice to have a few little nods to other eras. But at the same time, I don't think that's what Russell does really. He doesn't reference as much as Moffat did.
Hmm.
It's kind of Moffat's thing to, like for example, Moffat's first finale. He brought back all the monsters that there were, and he kind of appeals more to the fan base in some ways. But in terms of the story, I thought it was really good, so can't complain really.
Yeah, I guess on the subject of references and things, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about as well. Because I mean, yeah, like you say that in the kind of the bulk of the episode, it wasn't as much sort of yeah taking notes from the past or eras apart from Russell's own. But then there were those moments, weren't there, when we kind of got wacky stuff like Adric, River Song, Sarah Jane, Malik Chen,
Little
um,
puppets.
the little puppets. Yeah, I was going to say maybe what was everyone's favorite reference to the past, aside from all the kind of obvious stuff like the toy maker and things like that.
I
Ooh,
did like the puppets. I think they were really
Yeah,
fun.
they were good.
But I think they missed a trick not putting one for Dan or Ryan to say, like, oh, Ryan fell off his bike, but he's all right. That's all right then. Or something to do with
yeah,
Dan's house being shrunk, or they
yeah,
could have played around with almost that kind of more light-hearted one after the three that were quite obviously quite
yeah. Quite
downbeat, but
bleak, weren't they? Yeah,
quite bleak.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I know the kind of point of it was that the toy maker was showing Donna how dangerous it can be to travel with the Doctor, but I think it would have been quite funny to have one a little bit more light-hearted towards the end.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it's good fun.
yeah. Because I also loved the puppets. I think partially because it was one of the few things that sort of hadn't been leaked or talked about in advance. So that was
Yeah,
genuinely a really nice surprise. And obviously, it wasn't Karen Gillan and what Janet Coleman and Pearl Mackie actually there, but it was the characters, and it was a nice nod to the past and a nice fusion, I think, yeah, of the David Doctor and all that stuff, but also the stuff that's happened to him since he was the first David Doctor. Um, yeah, so I did like that, and I was kind of going through my head when I was watching it, like, okay, we're doing Amy, we're doing Clara, we're doing Bill. Like, where do we go next? Because all of the 13th Doctor companions, apart from like Dan with his house and stuff, they were left in a relatively good place, or they're still alive at least. So yeah, I was kind of wondering how they were going to address that, and I suppose the answer was they just didn't. They just ignored it.
I did see
Josh,
Yeah.
people saying as well how
mm,
you have Mel and the 14th Doctor now, and obviously she goes to the companion support groups where Yaz is as well, and it's like Yaz doesn't even know the
oh
Doctor's still out there.
yes, yeah. I hadn't thought of that. Like
So,
a link between the two things. Yeah.
um,
And because she'll be, I suppose, popping up in the Shooty's season as well. So maybe Mel's going to be all over everything. She's going to be spending, Monday with David Tennant, Tuesday with Shooty, Wednesday at the support group. Um, Josh, favourite reference? Anything that springs to mind?
I was intrigued by how the Master ended up in the Toymakers too.
Yeah, let's do this then, God.
And Russell's almost reference to himself
Hmm,
with the red nails picking up.
yes.
Um, One thing I did want to say about references, before if we do talk about the Master and what
Yeah, yeah.
implications that um, is that as you said, they mentioned Mavic Chen, River Song, but they're references. It's not like River Song turned up. And so, question I'm going to put to you guys is: are you happy with the amount of returning characters? Because everyone we thought would be in this is in this. We knew that Mel was going to be in it. There was no
Hmm,
cameos we didn't expect. And I know that a lot of people with Wild Blue Yonder were expecting people to turn up who didn't, and especially with this one as well, people were expecting cameos which didn't arrive. Were you guys happy with the amount of characters that are in here, or like you said, apart from Susan, were there any people that you hoped would be in it that weren't?
I think it needs more Eccleston. I think everything always needs more
Everything needs
Eccleston.
more Eccleston. We should say, actually, shouldn't we, that Pete and I, we were watching Eccleston on stage when this originally went out, and so forever now we'll be able to say that I think Christmas Carol is playing Scrooge. I think we were watching Eccleston receive his first visit from the first ghost, the ghost of Christmas Past, at the moment that Shooty Gatwa became the Doctor. I was like looking at my watch and thinking, oh my god, yeah, that'll be happening just about now.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Perfectly timed.
he was there in spirit. He was there on the stage, but sadly not
Ah,
on
there in spirit. I
the
see what you
episode
did
as
there.
well. There's spirit, yeah.
Oh,
um, yeah, what were we talking about? I've forgotten now. Eccles. Oh yeah, the characters and
is there
stuff.
anyone that you'd
Yeah.
hoped would make a cameo that didn't?
See, I think personally for me, I am inclined to agree with Pete about stuff like Caroline Ford and kind of missed opportunities where there are people like that. I mean, she's kind of the main example there, really, where not to be kind of too bleak about or anything, but people that might not sort of be around for future anniversaries and stuff. You kind of want to get them while you can. Maybe they've been offered people like Caroline Ford and said no, or it's not worked out, and we don't know, I suppose, what goes on behind the scenes. I think on the one hand, yes, it's made more of that, but then also it is a tricky one because, like, I think part of it comes from from the leaks and from advance information and things like Mel being leaked as well. The fans knew all that stuff, but if we hadn't known so much of it, if those things hadn't been leaked, there would have been more genuine surprises. And I think when you do look at the episode, like, kind of objectively, in terms of what we do get there, like with obviously David Tennant, Catherine Tate, you've got Mel, you've got Kate Stewart there, you've got all these new characters, you've got the Toymaker, the flashback to the Toymaker as well with William Hartnell and Michael Goff, which colorized footage, and I find electrifying every single time I see it. And with the score in that moment as well, with like arpeggio thing on the background, it is so creepy and it's such a fantastic moment. So yeah, part of me thinks they could have done, and I think probably overall that they could have done more across the three specials, particularly in the second one, if you're going to call it an anniversary story, regardless of what you think of the story itself. But then I am reminded of those moments, and when I kind of stop and think that it's bonkers that we had that footage, that flashback footage, or Mel, or whatever, transmitted on BBC One in a primetime slot, I'm like, actually, that's kind of whack that actually happened in the first place. So it's a tricky one.
Did you hear about? I think it was on the commentary. Russell tried to get or wanted to get Peter Purves involved at one stage.
I
Yeah,
did. I'd heard
playing a
about that
cow or
on
something.
Twitter or something. Yeah, and then I was watching the commentary just before this, and I was like, what? Like, what is? I
Yeah.
don't know what he's talking. It was like a cow in the corner of unit or something in the ops room. I think they were going to have the Vlinks in one corner and a cow in the other corner. It turned out to be like a fake cow, like Peter Purves in disguise. I don't know. Yeah, that would have been nice, I suppose, in a sense, to have him in both Toymaker stories. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I suppose with this one in particular, there was so much going on. I mean, perhaps the time has come to sort of turn our attention. Well, actually, I was going to say to the Toymaker, but let's briefly address the Master thing as well. I do want
Okay.
to address that because,
Yeah.
again, that was a genuine surprise. It hadn't been leaked. It hadn't been talked about. I don't think anyone was kind of anticipating or expecting the Master to even like be name dropped this soon because of how recently we saw the Master previously and because of how much we've seen the character over like the past decade as well. What are our expectations for that? Because I think what I take from it is that it's a nice little cheeky little nod there, and it's kind of a way of just parking or planting the Master, in the background and having him there to kind of pull out when the time comes. But I don't think we'll see the Master maybe for another couple of seasons. But what are people thinking there?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think the Masters on horizon for the foreseeable near future. But I think it's just, yeah, it's the anniversary. It's a way of getting them involved, I guess, in a way.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think it's just a nice little reference, and not particularly setting anything up for later, but laying the groundwork if they want to bring them back at some point.
Hmm. Whose hand was it that picked up the tooth?
It was the exact same woman who did it in the end of time.
Yeah.
She's come back. She's
Well,
managed to
the
follow her
ghost
up
of
to the
yeah
playground.
from when the prison exploded. Yeah, because
Yeah.
again with that, it'll probably just be like a new character, like it was last time. We were saying, oh, who is it? Is it Lucy Saxon? I think people saying, is it Donna Noble at one point as well because of her fingers or nails or whatever? And it's like, no, it's just going to be, he's just going to be whatever he wants it to be, and it'll be. So let's also talk about the toy maker. I was just watching a bit more of the Envision commentary in the break between our 40-minute limits for these meetings. I've just got to the Spice It Up. It's called Spice It Up, right? Isn't it? That's the song.
Yeah.
The Spice Girls sequence. So I think on that note, yeah, with that sort of fresh in my mind, I mean, what do we make of that? What do we make of the character in general, and how they were treated in this? You know, we've got those three geysers, like the top hat and tails, the kind of traditional toy shop toy maker one, and then obviously the Spice Girls, and of course the American one, the Galvanic Bean as well. All these different iterations of the character. How do we find the toy maker and Neil Patrick Harris?
I think I was more shocked that you didn't know what the song was, Richard.
Yeah, I turned to you the other night and I said, "Oh, did you recognize that song? Did you know it beforehand?" And I was like, "No," but
You didn't know the Spice
I
Girls,
didn't
Richard?
know it.
By
I'm
me.
sorry. I'm really sorry.
Wow.
But no, it's one of those songs now that like I've liked it on Spotify and it's in my head, and I'll never be able to forget it now. Any song that's been Doctor Who, once it's been in the
Yeah.
show, it's like right, it's lodged in there now.
Well, speaking of references, I felt like that was a very clear homage to I
Yeah.
Can't Decide with the Master
Uh,
in Last of the Time Lords, definitely.
mm. It was, yeah, an incredible sequence and incredibly choreographed as well. Because yeah, obviously we've had a bit of a trend with this, obviously in Paradox and Sound Drums, like you say, too, with both times with the Master, and I think, yeah, in the nicest way possible, this kind of blew both those out of the water. Really, like I mean, both of those, you know, at the time were great, but it's like taking it up another level with all these different shots and all the dancing, like with Kate and Mel and whatever, and the stunts where he throws them against a wall and all these doors and the rose petals and everything. It's really,
Mm.
yeah, dramatic. So we had that iteration of the character. What about the other versions of the toy maker? Das ist ein Ball and Das ist ein Toy Maker. I don't know
Yeah.
what accent. I can't even do it, but yeah.
I think well, I was really excited when it got announced that Neil Patrick Harris was cast because one of my other favorite shows, apart from Doctor Who, is How I Met Your Mother.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and he plays the main character in that. So I was really excited to see him. And you can see as a performer, and they mentioned this as well in the behind the scenes, I think, he's just so versatile in that he's interested in magic as a person anyway, so he does lots of magic tricks, all the card stuff as the toy maker. He can dance, he can sing. He's a very natural showman, which I think lended himself well to the role. Um, I'm not going to lie though, as much as I did like the performance that Neil Patrick Harris gave, the character and the way that they were involved in the story, I ended up feeling quite underwhelmed. Um, we never got a explanation for why the 14th Doctor's clothes appeared when he regenerated from Jodie Whittaker. And I remember loads of people almost had it embedded in their heads as facts that, oh, it's the Toymaker's influence. And it's going to get
Yeah.
revealed that the Toymaker did
Yeah.
it. And that wasn't the case. In fact, the Toymaker only entered our world after the whole thing with the Salt last episode. The Toymakers actually ended up having far less of an influence on this story that I think people, and certainly myself, thought he
Mm.
was. And so he seems like um, he wasn't as much as a threat as I thought he was going to be. And I know that as a character, he's very strictly sort of I stick to the rules of the game and that's my existence. But again, with the whole playing
Mm.
catch thing, it just felt too easy. And the way that the giggle just disappeared with him, it just felt too easy. Um, so that was a shame. But I really liked what we did see of him.
Yeah, it was a an interesting one with him, and I think Pete and I were sort of talking about this as well with the story as a whole. But there's a very kind of clear sort of turning point. Basically, as soon as they get onto the helipad, or as soon as the biogeneration takes place, and it kind of becomes a very different story. Because I think the first half in particular, based on my first watch, is very, very strong and very convincing. It kind of doesn't let up. You know, you go from the chaos in the streets of Bristol / London or whatever, and then you go to units, you go back in time, and there's that fantastic moment. I already mentioned it in the toy shop where the Doctor recognizes the toy maker and he bows, and it's just like a chilling moment, and the music
Mm.
as well. All the
Yeah,
stuff in
Murray Gold's
the
score
toy
was
room.
brilliant. Very years and years,
Yeah,
I thought.
yes, I loved all those touches. Very, very nice, and just really, yeah, really properly scary, properly chilling. I think with the toy room, I mean, there was some nice stuff there. I feel they could have done a little bit more with it, perhaps in terms of showing off the toy room and all the different parts of it. We saw some corridors, we saw some like reused sets, I think, from the John Logie Bad stuff earlier on. We saw the puppet show, but more of that might have been nice. Um, yeah, I to be honest, I felt it less when I rewatched it, a little bit less, but certainly when I first watched, I did think it was a bit of a shame. But like you say, that well, first of all, he gets defeated so easily, and just in general, his role kind of diminishes quite quickly, sort of after their generation takes place.
Mm.
It sort of fizzled out a little bit, all that stuff. Um, but yeah, I think on the whole, um, I really enjoyed his performance and the stuff we got there, and all the commentary as well earlier on, with the whole idea of the giggle and the kind of the political side to that as well, with humanity and the worst of humanity, all that
Trinity
sort of stuff.
Wells.
Trinity Wells,
Yeah.
yeah, becoming an anti, what was it, Z-Dex, anti-Z-Dexer.
Mhm.
Fantastic stuff. All those little brief glimpses and things. In fact, on that note, a wild little tangent actually, but the guy that like played the Boris Johnson type character, the
Yeah.
politician. Um, I think someone discovered his CV months ago. I think he's meant to be called Edward Lawn Bridges, and apparently, I think in next year's season there's someone called Marty Bridges. So I'm not sure whether
Right.
that's going to tie in, or maybe it's just
Well,
like literally a random
maybe I've
thing.
got
But
a prediction about that, which I'll tell you later. I didn't know that,
okay,
but that just adds
well,
further credence to
there
it.
we go, there we go. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else on the toy maker? Or are we sort of done with him? I don't know.
I was kind of not annoyed, but I was surprised that Pete's prediction about Rose's toys in the Star Beast having
Oh
some
yeah,
role
yeah.
didn't come about because I
Uh,
genuinely thought that they would. So again, I was shocked by how like weak the toy maker's influence was. I genuinely thought it was going to be, oh, this has been my great game the whole time across these 3 episodes, and it wasn't. Um, I was quite
hmm.
surprised by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're
It
very
would have been an
standalone, aren't you?
obvious way, wouldn't
You
it?
can watch any
Mm.
of them. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, as a whole, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
In
at
fact,
one
I
point, people were
okay.
saying, weren't they, that maybe the Toymaker is involved in everything. Maybe it's like a massive 3 parts of saga involving the Toymaker. Or maybe everything we've watched up to this point was set inside the toy room, or he was pulling the strings as far back as the regeneration with the clothes thing. Yeah, it was a little bit weird that, particularly with that, they didn't take that and say, "Oh yeah, that was him," and it all ties back to the first regeneration as well. And that was
Mm.
like one of those kind of weird missed opportunities, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand though. Maybe you guys can help me with this. Why is it that the Doctor imposing the superstition of the salt in Wild Blue Yonder allowed him to break into the universe again?
I think the idea with it is that the Doctor invoking a myth or a superstition or whatever. So rather than the actual salt itself, I think it's like the idea of him believing in a superstition somehow opens this door to, yeah, like all these fantastical creatures and gods and things to come
Right,
into our
okay.
universe, something like that.
Mm.
I don't know. It was a bit, yeah, it was a bit of a
Yeah,
weird one. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I guess it was to sort of add the sort of depth, I guess, of like this the Doctor's fault that this has happened in a way. I get, but I do think that it would have been better if the toy maker had sort of been the big force driving these 3 episodes behind the scenes right from that regeneration at Durdle Door. I think that would have been better because we still don't know what in universe reason why those clothes changed,
Yeah. Um,
which bugs me.
yeah, it was left dangling, wasn't it? I mean, we sort of got a bit of an explanation for the face thing. It's the Doctor's subconscious kind of telling him, yeah, to like slow down and
Yeah,
just settle down as well. But yeah,
which I
I think
actually
people were kind of
quite liked.
expecting
To
a
be
bit
fair, I
more.
quite like that
Yeah,
explanation. I thought the sentiment of it was quite nice, and I know you said as well about the whole thing about past Doctors bi-generating now and splitting off into alternate timelines in the Doctorverse. But if I remember correctly, when Russell says that in the commentary, he says, I think this is what happens." So I guess death of the author, you can interpret it that way. You know, maybe if it's left ambiguous, I would like it to be that way actually. So in future Tales of the TARDIS things, I'd rather they didn't really mention it because I don't mind the fact that they look old. So I guess when we have future Tales of the TARDIS, they could be bi-generated Doctors, or they could just look older because of the time differential in Time Crash. Do you know what I mean? So it's up to you to decide because I'm not really a fan of that, like I said. So hopefully they leave it ambiguous, a bit like Bride of Doctor Left Gallifrey, I guess. They can be separate if you want, or they can be those original Doctors that you know and love. I think that would be a good way for it moving forward.
yeah. Because I guess now you say it as well. Like, it is one of those things, isn't it, where I suppose he's looked at something like the Timeless Child, maybe, or other developments. He's just maybe just thinking, I won't go too wild, or at least too quickly. I'll try and leave some sort of a bit like with the Timeless Child thing actually as well, a bit of mystery to what I'm doing here. I'm not going to, say it's definitely this or definitely that. Either way, you can sort of read into it. Yeah, I'd be interested to know whether that's like an intentional thing on his part or whether it's just him sort of, yeah, not forgetting to or not wanting to put it in the episodes for whatever reason. I don't know. Yeah.
Tell you what, I thought it's just occurred to me though, if we're going with the idea that these Doctors have bi-generated and split off now after their supposed regenerations, maybe that's something like where the Big Finish Ninth Doctor box sets where he's companionless come because his character is so
Okay.
different. You could retcon it that way. Because people have always
Yeah.
said as well, it's sort of like I think someone likened it to it's like if you complete a campaign in a video game and then you're just doing free roam afterwards. That's what the Ninth Doctor box sets feel like. It feels like it comes after his development of Series 1.
Oh
So
my
maybe you
God.
can
Yeah.
retcon it as a bi-generated Ninth Doctor. There's a thought.
You know what? Now you say that, yeah, I think with that particular example, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I guess really, unless I've forgotten anything, that's kind of most of the episode dealt with. Perhaps if we turn our attention and our thoughts to the future in terms of our new Doctor and also the other bits and pieces. I suppose we talked about some of that, sure, I like the Master, but the other breadcrumbs in this that have been left for the future, like things like Triad Technology got a mention, which is that tech company I think that's meant to be on like the side of a bus at Christmas, and then it's like in
Mhm.
the finale next year as well, I think. And some of the note we've got like this pantheon of gods or whatever, the mythical, fantastical creatures or beings as well, left open. And speaking of mythical creatures and beings and gods, I think one is in our midst.
Oh my God, it's Miles Taylor.
La
Hello.
la 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 la
I've
la
just
la.
bi-generated from all of
Oh,
you guys. How
There
we
we go.
doing?
doing good. How are you
Doing
doing?
good.
I'm great.
Where's
I'm
where's the
still.
mustache gone?
Shooty took it away. We
Oh.
just split, and then he
Did
got
you
the
have it last
sash. I got
week?
the pants. I didn't actually.
All right. Okay.
So
I'm
yeah,
very
yeah. That was my
observant.
clone. That was my clone from Wild Blue Yonder. They took the tash away, and then yeah. It's all this
Right,
with
that
the
makes
stuff.
sense.
Yeah,
My
Fair enough.
tash is too long. There we go.
my tash is too long.
We were sort of just wrapping up our thoughts on the episode actually. So perhaps we're going to talk about the
Excellent.
future and things, Christmas and other bits and pieces. But perhaps in summary, Miles, any particular thoughts about this one?
Particularly since
I
you
mean,
didn't
a
see the
lot.
leak.
Since I didn't
Of
see
course,
the lead, that's
yes, of
true. I have
course.
the perspective
Yeah,
of not having seen that, and
the
I have to
one
say,
of us that
you know,
hasn't.
it did take me by surprise, and that
Mm.
was nice. It was nice to feel like it was a shock, but I think the main thing I've settled on is that emotionally, it really worked. I think whilst there's different aspects of it that might, in terms of continuity and canon and stuff, be a bit. I think that on a core level, it got me there. And I did a tear did spring to my eye. I won't lie. By the time the credits were rolling, it was kind of beautiful. And I think I'm looking forward to rewatching it. It's the only one that I haven't sort of been able to rewatch immediately, like I did with the others.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to it. I've seen Wild Blue Yonder 4 times now. Isn't that insane? That's mad that I've managed to watch that 4 times over. And so I'm looking forward to rewatching The Giggle and solidifying that opinion. One Neil Patrick Harris good. I'm sure you've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect casting.
That's a good thing maybe to pick up on, actually, in terms of our favourite of the three, and also as well, which one or which ones have other people rewatched the most? Because I think for me, I ended up seeing the Star Beast, I think, about 5 or 6 times over the first few days with different people or in different settings or on different screens and things. I've watched Wild Beyond twice. Interestingly enough, for me, that one doesn't quite have me going back for more in the same way. But I think, this one and the Star Beast maybe for me are the ones that do. What everybody else think about that?
I watched the Star Beast again last night because one of my housemates was interested in watching it, and we watched it together, and that was fun. So I've seen Star Beast, I think, 4 times now. And it was funny as well because right from the start, when you saw the meat, she was like, I don't trust that. They're going to turn out to be a mass murderer. And of course, they were right. But it stuck out to me watching it yesterday how the Star Beast is actually quite disconnected from the other two, I feel. It's very much a coded series for cleaning up all the baggage of the Meta Crisis so we can go and tell this story. I felt like the characterization of the 14th Doctor was quite different as well, because you see the Doctor being very broken and affected by things that have happened to him recently in Wild Blue Yonder and the Giggle. And that's revealed to be why his face has come back to sort of process all of that. Whereas with the Star Beast, he's straight into it, swaggering away, and sort of, aside from the scene at the end, which was lovely in the TARDIS, you don't really get much of that. He's certainly more 10th Doctor-y. But yeah, I've seen Wild Blue Yonder twice, and the Giggle I've only watched once all the way through. I saw everything post the Bi Generation I've seen twice, because I went back on iPlayer and rewatched that straight away. But I haven't seen it all the way through a second time, so I'm looking forward to doing that as well.
Yeah, I think I watched Star Beast 4 times, once with commentary. Wild Blue Yonder twice, and then the Giggle 3 times, once with commentary. So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Giggle with commentary as well. I usually wait to watch the episode at least once more without it, just so I can properly digest it, and then so I'm looking forward, because I really enjoyed the commentary on the Star Beast, so it's nice to get that again for that, and all the additional content. My God, I forget how much we get until the episode's dropped, and then you go on YouTube, you go on social media, and BBC Sounds, and it's everywhere. It's just a barrage. There's so much stuff, and it's fantastic.
Incredible.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that video commentary and hearing more of Russell's thoughts on and ideas, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some interesting stuff in there. So I think maybe, let's sort of wrap this up before we turn properly to the future with, favourite of the 3 specials. What is it for people? Is there a clear winner? I suppose I can think of some cases where that might be the case, but because I think for me personally, I'll go. I think for me it is between Star Beast or Giggle. Personally, just Wild Blue Yonder, I think the more I've thought about it, for me, just doesn't quite have that same, like I was sort of saying, it hasn't had me going back for more quite in the same way, as much as I admire what a technical feat it was and some of the strength of the character's work and things. But yeah, I'm a sucker for these big sort of Earth invasion stories, I think, and the aesthetic of that. So I think for me, it would be between these two. I was saying to Pete at the weekend that maybe Star Beast as an overall package, just because this one is kind of down a little bit by the bi-generation stuff in the second half, but I did really like the first half of this that was very strong. And upon rewatch as well, it's that thing again of, you know, your expectations going into it and kind of tempering those and afterwards appreciating it for what it is. So yeah, between those two for me, but I think Wild Blue Yonder would probably be the front runner for at least one of us here.
Is that me? Or is that Josh?
Well,
Oh, I'm not sure anymore.
okay.
Oh, unfaithful.
I think that as much as I really did like Wild Blue Yonder, and you know, you can hear last week how much I liked it, it's not stuck with me as much as the Giggle has. I
Right.
think the emotional aspect, the sort of sentiment of the whole bi generation and the image of the Doctor being allowed to process everything that's happened to them felt quite cathartic in a way. I've got to speak for a second. Quite cathartic, and it stayed with me the whole, you know, this is the happiest I've been in my life, which I'm not sure Wild Blue Yonder really has done. So I'm not sure because again, I've only watched it once all the way through. I'd say I think the Giggle is the most interesting plot-wise, but I liked all of the setup and especially the character moments of Wild Blue Yonder. I think they're both really, really good. I'll rank both of them quite highly, but I think the Giggle just comes on top for me actually in the end.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd say I think I'm gonna have to wait till I've solidified my opinion on the Giggle.
Of course.
But
yeah.
Instantly out of the first two, Wild Blue Yonder, like I said, it's one that I've gone back to the most. I can see it being one of those midnight, heaven sent type stories personally. And I think just the concepts and everything that was done there was so different and so experimental in a different way to the Giggle. I think the Giggle played with canon in the experimental way, whereas Wild Blue Yonder, can't even bloody say it. Wild Blue Yonder kind of took more of the science fiction concepts and pulled arms and legs and everything. So for me, it's still Wild Blue Yonder. Like I said, I've gone back to it a good few times. But I think as well, just an interesting point to make is that it really does seem like there's kind of been something for everyone in these three specials. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn there, but it feels like there's at least one of them that shines with you, no matter what. I hope that's the case.
I don't remember seeing the Eccleston episode though, so that didn't chime with me.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, what about you though, Pete? Because I remember you weren't too fond of Wild Blue Yonder and also the Star Beast. Were you fond of the Star Beast? I can't quite remember.
I quite like the Star Beast, yeah, I quite like the Star Beast.
Yeah.
I would probably say Star Beast was the best for me,
Right.
and then followed pretty closely by the Giggle, and then Wild Blue Yonder. Yeah, I wasn't really a fan of it. I thought it was quite ambitious. I thought it was quite good, but just wasn't like my sort of Doctor Who.
And I also think it's interesting actually how Russell said that the three episodes were quite separate entities and that you could really watch them on their own terms. And we were all sort of like, well, no, surely it's going to be a three-parter, really. They're all going to really lead into each other. But like the Star Beast felt like, now that we've seen the Giggle, that was very much done in one package.
Yeah.
And the Wild Blue Yonder very much its own thing. And then the Giggle kind of just felt like its own thing as well. It's very bizarre. He was bang on the money when he said that you can almost watch them without seeing the rest. And it's funny actually because people at work today have been saying that they watched the Giggle, but not the other two. They just jumped straight into the Giggle because they knew it was kind of the big one leading into the other stuff to come. My parents hadn't seen the previous two and just went, oh, it's on, let's watch it. And they enjoyed it just as much as they would have done, I imagine, having watched the other ones. So I think that's fascinating how they've kind of really become their own separate episodes despite the linked nature, I suppose.
I guess I never thought about that, but it's true. If you just accept that the Doctor and Donna have come back together and she's not dead, you can just return to it just like you return the Star Beast. I think we were saying before as well, before you came on, Miles, that the toy maker's influence was a little bit weaker than we were expecting, because we were expecting
Exactly,
the toy
yeah.
maker to sort of be pulling the strings. That was a great shot, by the way, in the Giggle with the puppetry.
Yeah.
But pulling the strings behind the scenes of these free specials, which he didn't end up doing, which I was quite surprised by.
Especially because you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the energy come out of the spaceship for Star Beast, where all the soldiers get taken over. And I thought, oh, was that energy got something to do with the toy maker? And kind of it didn't really link in as much as I thought it would.
I think that was meant to be, because in the comic, that is the radiation, because they talk about the Roth Warriors
Yeah.
talk about how the
Was
meat,
it the Black Sun in the comics?
yeah, it's the black sun.
Yeah, and it's the psychedelic
meat
sun in
people.
the.
Yeah, it's the same thing that turns
Oh
the
yeah,
unit.
yeah.
But although when I rewatched that last night, I did think to myself, isn't it convenient that the unit soldiers opened up the ship in the first place? Because if not,
Yeah.
the
Then
meat
the
wouldn't have
meats.
had it all of these
Yeah.
henchmen to do everything for them.
There must have been
So,
something to entice them in. I'm also very excited to read the supplement that came with Doctor Who magazine. They print the
yes.
whole, just like you said, Josh. I didn't believe you. I was like, they surely can't be printing the whole thing. But there we go. It was in my subscription package, so I'm
Yes.
very excited to be reading that over Christmas.
I have given that a read, just over the past few days or so, and yeah, very, very much enjoyed it. And it was, like you say, I was surprised to see that they'd included the whole thing. It's like a kind of, I think it's a hefty sort of 8 or so parts long, and they're only a few pages each, the different parts. But yeah, there's a lot of it there. A lot of it as well didn't make it to screen. It is really interesting to compare those bits and pieces, and also look at the bits that are quite similar in one way or another. So I think maybe shall we finally turn to Christmas just briefly, and I don't know, have people seen the Christmas plot leaks at all? And also, sort of regardless of that, what are our hopes and expectations, predictions, perhaps for Christmas, or indeed beyond as well? If anyone has anything to say there.
Is it surprising that I have also not seen the leaks for the Christmas one, just as I hadn't seen the
There we
leaks?
go. Yeah.
I will say as well, like I saw rumblings about 60th stuff, in terms of a unique regeneration. Not that I knew specifics and even dialogue specifics that I learned later on that people knew about. But for the Christmas one, I have no idea whatsoever. So I'm fascinated to see how things are going to pan out. The only glimpse that I've got is the Goblin song. That is it. For me,
which
that's
was
all I know.
today at the time.
And it's just hit number 1 as well. It's just hit number 1 in the charts.
You're joking. It hasn't, has
Honest, it's beat everything. It's beat Fairy Tale of New York and all the other
Wow.
Christmas hits that are being re-released. So Doctor Who fans, what a fantastic bunch.
Blimey.
We've got a song about cannibalism in the charts.
Done better than Doctor in Distress.
Surprisingly, yeah, I know. Isn't that shocking?
Oh my gosh.
Something that I was surprised by. Something that I was surprised by. I have seen the leaks for the plot of the Christmas episode, but I wasn't expecting, which we saw in the trailer, was that it seems like Ruby and the Doctor meet at a club. And funnily enough, right, literally on Saturday, I was out at a club and
you saw Shooty Gatwa.
I met a girl who looked the spitting image of Millie Gibson.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And it absolutely scared me.
Yeah.
And so that's
Was she watching you dance in your kilt on the dance floor?
No, but she looked at me. Our eyes met, and for a second or two, I did think, is that no? But there you go. Maybe it was. Maybe it was, and I missed out the chance.
Best marketing strategy I've ever heard of.
Yeah, never mind Sculptures down on the South Bank. That's where it's at, isn't it? Having Millie Gibson infiltrates clubs in real life, in real time.
Well, she's my age, so you never know.
Well, exactly. Yeah,
you never know.
I have got a theory about season 1, though. So you sort of touched on it early with the politician character.
Yes.
But we've seen from filming pictures that it's looking like there's a years and years Harold Saxon-esque arc of somebody rising to power in the UK in the next season. And I think that is purely down to the Giggle. I think the Giggle, which causes everyone to think that they're right and have all these really extreme views, I think off screen, and it would probably have a flashback, or maybe it will just be reference off screen during the giggle. Whoever this character is, I can't remember what he's called. Maybe one of you guys will remember the name of the character.
Roger Ap William, would it be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off screen is being like a sort of rally leader for these really extreme views. And then after the giggle ends, that allows him to sort of rise to power over the course of the series. Maybe we even hear about it in Church from Ruby Road. But I think it's the giggle that allows people to sort of maybe start agreeing with perhaps some of these really extreme policies that he might impose. I don't know. But that's my prediction, that the giggle, because we've seen lots of
I
stuff.
like that. Yeah.
We've seen lots of stuff in the story as well, not just the bi-generation, but like the Lynx, who has got to come back at some point. I think is even said is going to come back at some point.
I think so.
And I think,
yeah.
Love the links.
I think that the giggle is going to be what causes perhaps the big bad of the season 1 to happen.
Because I was saying as well beforehand, Miles, before you came on, that politician guy, I believe, was an actor whose involvement in the special was discovered months ago on his CV. I believe that the name of his character, who only appeared very, very briefly, but I believe he's called Edward Lawn Bridges. And I believe there's a character called Marty Bridges coming up as well. So I don't know whether there's going to be something there, maybe like his daughter or something, or a family link. Yeah, just something. Yeah, so it certainly wouldn't surprise me if all that stuff ends up sort of, amounting to something bigger.
And also another season 1 villain I think we've had rumblings about is whoever Jinx Monsoon's playing, because there's a lot about this sort of celestial being, we saw the hand that picks up the master tooth and things like that, the boss. What was it the toy maker referred to? The one who waits?
The one who waits. That's someone else's game.
So, I mean, I'm sure Jinx Monsoon is already being referred to somehow. Is she the Rani? Is Jinx Monsoon the Rani?
You never know.
Don't know.
Could be the Wirren.
Could be the Wirren. I'm still
at long last. At long last.
Still holding out hope.
Unless the big bad is the moles trying to get revenge on Wilf.
I mean,
that's the season 1 big bad. Bad mole.
Proper closure, the story that we needed. Yeah. No, I think Jinx will probably be like a kind of like we've had the suggestion of other gods and things, maybe like a god of music or something, like a musical kind of
the Devil's Chord.
The Devil's Chord. There we go. Any other bits and pieces? I mean, Pete, I remember you saying to me that you didn't know anything about this one really, like Miles, in terms of the Christmas episode. So going in blind.
It's got goblins in it, but that's kind of all I know.
It's got
really.
goblins. It's got a song. Yeah,
Goblin King.
It will be an interesting one. I think it'll be quite a different type of episode as well, the likes of which we haven't really seen for a while. I mean, obviously it's the first Christmas special in a while. I think it'll be kind of a sort of a return to that more fluffy, light-hearted type of episode or type of story as well. So I think maybe actually, not to be down about it, but I think in terms of the episodes we got this year, I'm not expecting it to rank too highly personally for me, but I don't know, it might surprise me. We've had this song, we know there are the goblins and things. I think it'll be quite like a child-friendly one maybe, which is good in its own way. Christmas Destination Christmas, I think, as the caption said, Destination Christmas for the Doctor and for us, and hopefully I suppose we do a little round table or something about that as well, to kind of refer back to
Boxing
Day
with all our turkey sandwiches.
Yeah.
And all of our Doctor Who presents that we've unwrapped.
All of our Doctor Who presents. Yeah, we'll do a little haul.
Should we
I guess.
briefly talk as well, because it's been announced, the 15th Doctor's Sonic, because you've seen it up close, you and Pete, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
We saw the exhibit, yes. So it's very different. The TV remote, certainly, the TV remote comparison is definitely the one. It is absolutely that, like a disc thing. I imagine it's quite comfortable to hold and stuff and to have in his pocket, but yeah, it just doesn't really scream sonic screwdriver at me. But I don't know.
I think for me it's going to be a bit like 14s. That took time to grow on me, and now I actually really love it. It's really mad. This is obviously 15s is a bit more of a departure from any Sonic we've seen before, so it might take a bit longer. But I think seeing it in motion, in action, being used, all the different features. I love the Rwandan proverb that's written on it in Califrain text, and that's the best part about it. So I think when I see it in action, I'm going to warm to it a bit more. But initial reaction is, wow, the Doctor's just got a Sky TV remote, and there we go.
Yeah. I suppose it'll make a great toy, and I can't wait for the announcement, presumably sometime in the not too distant future of the toy version. But yeah, I think we've got about 90 seconds left on this Zoom meeting, so we better wrap this up. I should say thank you to everybody. Thanks to Josh, Pete, and Miles as well for joining me for this. And yes, I guess we'll see you again at Christmas. So thanks for watching. Put your comments and thoughts below, and goodbye.
And happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Happy Christmas. Stream the Goblin song.
Merry Christmas to all of you at home.